Hey everyone, this video will be a bit different from my usual content. I'll be discussing some serious and mature subject matter that might be triggering to some viewers. If you would like to skip this video, feel free to do so, as I understand the content is very sensitive. This video will act as part 2 to my first video on Takeshi Gojo, since the information provided will give us more context into the background and creation of the character. I would highly suggest watching that video first and coming back here, but I'll go ahead and do a quick recap. In my video, Let's Talk About Takeshi Gojo, I go over the main plot points and controversies of the final arc of Kodocha Season 1, with the help of my friend and podcast co-host Maho Shoujo-im. This arc is considered by fans as the worst in the anime due to the unsettling nature of the relationship between Sana and an older actor she meets who is Takeshi Gojo. Throughout the arc, Sana grows very attached to Takeshi, and the two have a bizarre romantic dynamic, similar to the one she had with Rei at the start of the series. Unlike with Rei, Takeshi seems very serious about his romantic involvement with Sana, and there are many scenes that just are very uncomfortable. In the Rei situation, he was playing the part of Sana's boyfriend under her mother's supervision, and it made sense due to the fact that he felt he was in debt to Sana for giving him a home after a very rough period of his life. We see the inner turmoil Rei goes through because he isn't seriously interested in Sana, and how this eventually hurts her. She is ignorant about the fact that an adult man like Rei could never love her romantically. In the Takashi arc, this notion goes out the window, as we see Takashi taking Sana out on a romantic dinner, and there's even a very uncomfortable scene that implies Takashi undressed Sana and put her in his own clothes after finding her asleep on a park bench and taking her back to his apartment. The creepy relationship isn't the only thing wrong with this arc, though. It's also the fact that everyone acts so out of character, with Misako having little to no involvement in the situation with Sana and Takashi, just letting her go out alone with a strange man she just met all the time. Sana also fixates way too much on Takashi, ignoring Akito and her other friends. She even avoids her friend Mamie for almost an entire episode, who is upset with her because Sana forgot to mention her in the book she was writing. This just doesn't feel like the Sana we know, who would have immediately apologized and done anything she could to make her friend happy again. The last thing I'd like to touch on is the fact that Sana never learns that Takashi is her biological father, and no one tells her the truth, not even Misako, who finds out towards the end of the arc. So what even was the point of it? Why did the anime writers think making an arc about Sana and her biological father being in a weird romantic relationship was okay? Today, I'm going to share with you all an interview and dialogue between the anime director Akitaro Daichi and Sana's Japanese voice actress Shizue Oda that sheds some light on the creation of Takeshi Gojo. And it's about to get much, much worse. Before we break down this interview, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my friend and fellow Kodocha Discord mod Retro Nova for translating this. I will link his socials in the description below. Please give him a follow and check out his content. So this interview is featured in the art book from the Kodocha Season 2 laserdisc box set. I'll also post scans on my Pinterest for anyone who would like to look at it themselves, as there's a lot of interesting info about the anime here. I also plan on creating a Twitter thread about the entirety of the content within this interview, as it goes over some really interesting background on the dubbing process, the changes made in Season 2, and more. I also plan to make more YouTube videos breaking it down in the future. However, the focus today will be on the Takeshi Gojo portion of the interview. Director Akitaro Daichi offers the most insight into the creation of Takeshi Gojo. Daichi wanted to go beyond the one-shot filler episodes that made up the midsection of Season 1. This is where the idea for the Takeshi arc was born, as he wanted to have something serious like the first arcs at the beginning of the anime, but have it be something that was an anime original. Mangaka Miho Obana was involved in the creative process, as she wrote a general synopsis. It is unclear whether or not it was her idea to make Takashi Sana's father, but she did come up with the idea that he would be an unsuccessful actor. Daichi took this a bit further, describing Takashi as, quote, sloppy, pathetic, and hopeless. He wanted this to coincide with the fact that he would be the only person at the time who could give comfort to Sana. Originally, they didn't want Takashi to die at the very end of filming like he ended up doing in the anime, but the reason why this was changed isn't stated. Sana's voice actress Shizue Oda and Takashi's voice actor Hiroshi Takahashi met with Daichi away from the recording studio to discuss the complexities of this character. It's important to note that apparently the female scriptwriters for the show found Takashi disgusting and hated him immensely, which could have been the reason why Daichi had this discussion with the voice actors away from the studio. Despite the backlash, Daichi was a strong advocate for Takashi, as well as his relationship with Sana. He was so passionate about their relationship that he even considered doing another series touching on the same themes. To Daichi, the idea of a normal parent-child relationship and a relationship between parent and child as lovers could coexist. He even claims that this kind of relationship would be ideal. Daichi also mentions that at the time he had a young daughter and stated that the dynamic between Takashi and Sana was the ultimate expression of the kind of relationship he wanted to have with his daughter. Daichi goes further with this and explains how he projected the worst or, quote, most pathetic aspects of himself onto the character of Takashi. He describes Takashi as kind of an alter ego. Daichi considered ending the series entirely with the Takashi arc, but continued due to the unresolved plot between Sana and Akito. The anime team eventually wrote off the Takashi arc as a dreamlike story. So, let's just take all of this in for a moment. The content from this interview is highly concerning. It implies that there are some very questionable traits and motives from director Daichi in his professional and personal life. It's really hard to hear this information and believe that there was not any suspicious behavior that might have gone on behind the scenes, or even continues to go on to this day. However, this is not the only instance where Daichi allegedly displayed unsavory behavior. The Me Too movement began in 2006 in the United States as a way to advocate for women of color who had been sexually abused. The movement was meant to encourage empathy and solidarity among women who suffered from abuse, and promote change regarding policies centered around sexual harassment within the workplace. The movement took a little over a decade to make it into mainstream culture, with famous Hollywood actresses such as Alyssa Milano coming forward about sexual harassment and violence they endured in the work environment. The movement spread like wildfire across the nation and even bled over into international cultures. The Me Too movement has inspired women of all demographics to come forward about their experiences, and it has led to many conversations about toxic power dynamics. While sexual harassment has been a problem in all kinds of businesses, we hear a lot about how rampant it has become in the entertainment industry and the news. Unfortunately, Hollywood is not the only place where this horrible toxic culture exists. In 2019, voice actress Hiroko Konishi, known for her roles in Dr. Slump and Digimon Adventures, came forward with her story about sexual harassment within the Japanese voice acting industry. Konishi described an experience she had with her manager, where she was asked to spend time with an undisclosed anime director at a hot springs in the nude. Her manager mentioned how this anime director went on what they referred to as pleasure trips somewhat frequently. Konishi was told to do this because it was a way to thank the director for assisting her with her work. She refused and was ultimately shunned and lost opportunities for more voice acting work. Konishi goes on to describe the structure of the industry, explaining the pressures of engaging in inappropriate social gatherings with managers and how her coworkers would discuss that they couldn't get by just being a good actor and they needed to essentially sell themselves. Harassment is rampant in this industry because voice actors take on work as freelance contractors. Even if you belong to an agency, you're led to think you'll continue to get jobs only as long as you stay quiet. In an article published by Unseen Japan, they discuss a survey about the harassment that freelance entertainers face. While the sample size is small, being only 828 participants, The results are jarring, and I can only imagine how many did not participate in fear of retaliation against entertainment bigwigs. It was reported that out of all the voice actors interviewed, 60.8% of respondents experienced power harassment and 35.4% sexual harassment. 40% stated they didn't tell anyone about their harassment, with 60% stating they felt it wouldn't make a difference if they did. While it is encouraging that more women across the globe are speaking up about their experiences, sexual harassment and unjust power dynamics in the workplace are still a huge problem in society to this day. I wanted to bring this up as it does relate to the backstory behind the Takashi Arc and the people who created it. While not much is known about the other anime team members' involvement in the creation of the arc, we can assume that Daichi took creative control of it since he was, after all, the director. The anime director mentioned in Hiroko Kanishi's story was, allegedly, Akitaro Daichi. He was also known for directing the 2001 adaptation of Fruits Basket, which features a version of the character Shigure Soma, where his sexually deviant traits are more exaggerated and emphasized. I would be interested to hear about Daichi's thoughts and execution on the character setup of Shigure. I have to wonder if he feels the same way about Shigure as he does about Takashi. Regardless, the information provided in this interview about the Takashi arc and hearing about these allegations leads us to believe that there is a very deep-rooted problem within Japanese culture, which we also see within the Western world as well. One of the biggest social problems we face within all demographics, but with women especially, has to do with understanding the importance of consent. In any kind of romantic or sexual engagement, consent should be mandatory. There are many reasons for lack of consent that just go beyond plain ignorance. There are many instances where sex is used to pressure an individual as a way to have control and authority over them. Guilt trips or using sexual favors as a form of blackmail in a professional environment are also tactics that ignore consent. These practices are always unethical, but continue to happen behind closed doors. While there is no conclusive answer as to why those in positions of authority resort to these practices, there are theories that individuals who show narcissistic traits are more likely to become sexual abusers. So what does all of this have to do with the Takeshi Gojo arc? Like I mentioned before, lack of consent is still a rampant social issue throughout the world. This issue also pertains to children as well, and I want to stress that it is the primary part of this issue. In Japan, the age of consent was 13 years old until 2023. Yes, 2023. You were considered a legal adult in Japan at the age of 20. Now the age of consent is 16, but you are still considered to be a child. Does that make any sense? Children cannot consent. Children should not be put into sexual situations ever by adults who they trust or anyone else. Having children in situations like that should never be depicted positively in fiction. With the information provided by Daichi in this interview and context of the toxic culture of the entertainment industry, it gives us better insight into the intentions of the Takashi arc and makes it even more disgusting than ever before. I would like to clarify that I am not accusing Daichi or anyone on the anime team of sexual harassment towards a minor, or anyone else for that matter. I am simply using the information gathered to convey a very real and very large global human rights issue. I also wanted to share this because it gives us a better understanding of the psychology behind the character of Takashi. Even though the intentions behind his creation are toxic and downright diabolical, there are positive lessons that we can take away from this. Kodocha is a product of its time. We should preserve history because we can learn from it and make better choices in the future. While this arc on its own doesn't give us much to work with, knowing how and why it was written highlights the harmful attitudes and ideals of the time. It should speak volumes that many of the female writers were disgusted with Takashi. If we can take away anything from the Takashi arc and why it was created, it's this. It exposes the darker side of the entertainment industry, through its conception as well as its narrative. Sana is a young, naive girl still navigating through life. Much of her character arc throughout Kodocha is centered around the idea that she is learning what love really is. I would argue that no child really understands romantic love, or even love in general, until they become an adult and have had multiple interpersonal relationships. Takashi is an older man who had experiences with love and treated Sana in a way that mimics what a romantic relationship between adults would look like. It definitely doesn't help that there is also the father-daughter dimension here, which promotes incest. However, as those of us who have seen the arc know, that fact is not revealed until much later in the arc, but still, the writing team shouldn't have taken it that far. It is still baffling that they were able to get away with this, but it makes sense given the entertainment industry runs on corruption, coercion, and secrecy. Art imitates life, and I now truly believe more than ever that there are some dark truths hidden within the Takeshi Gojo arc. Admittedly, there could be some cultural context I am missing here since I know very little about Japanese culture. However, I strongly believe in everything I stated in this video about the importance of consent and advocating for children, because the psychological effects of abuse are absolutely horrifying. No child deserves to live with the weight of abuse for their entire life. I hope what was discussed in this video sheds some light on this worldwide issue. I also hope that it gives fans of Kodocha some closure as to why the Takashi arc is the way it is, instead of leaving us scratching our heads wondering what in the world the anime team was thinking when they made this. As I've stated before, I always like to end videos on a positive note, and if anything good can come out of this, it's the fact that it highlights a very long-term, deep-seated problem in society that needs to change desperately. The more aware we are of these issues, the more we can understand why they occur, so we can do what we can to effectively prevent them from happening. As always, thank you for watching the video. This was very difficult for me to make due to the subject matter. What do you think about the information presented? Did I miss anything? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See ya!